Hadithi hadithi. Today we are going to talk about the history of transport in Kenya. Kenya attained independence in the year 1963. Of course, back then, how many people owned private cars? Who owned private cars? The rich. The rest were either walking to their destinations or relying on public transport vehicles to move from one place to another. Back then, of course, the Muzungu era, there was a lot of organization in the public transport, and the buses or whatever vans were being used to transport people from one place to another were very easy to distinguish between them and the private vehicles because they were designed to carry as many people as possible, not so comfortably, but they would do the job. They'll get the job done. Then years went by and the number of people able to afford the comfort of owning a private car increased, and the numbers of the private vehicles on the road increased. And then there was a bit of a quagmire, like what vehicles are doing public transport and what are the private vehicles on the road. How do you differentiate them? I can tell you, somewhere in the late 90s and I think early 2000s, vehicles that were being used for public transport, some of them were actually used for private transport. Like, I'll give you an example. I grew up in Meru. The vehicles that were most popular for transporting people from Meru to Nairobi were the 504 Peugeots, those Peugeot. And a lot of them were being used by the police. Back in the days, we used to have this unit called Flying Squad. They would use those ones. And then you have a lot of people who owned them as private vehicles. And then now they were being used as PSVs. So the presence of vehicles that look exactly the same and they're being used for private transport, for public transport, and even by the police, brought about the need to create a distinction between private vehicles and the PSVs. Then the then government, the Kibaki government that came in 2003, they had a minister of transport called Mishuki, and he implemented some sort of rules which have transformed the public transport sector in Kenya. Back in the days, the said 14-seaters, these 14-seater matatus you see, used to have seats where you'd sit 5 people per row. Nowadays it's 3 people with safety belts. Back then it was 5 people, no safety belts. We even had other matatus which were like vans, like these Hilux that carry Mirror. They had a cabin at the back and people would sit looking at each other. They called them face me's. What were safety belts? There were no safety belts. There were no speed governors. There was no TLB licensing. Matatu drivers and Matatu conductors did not have color-coded uniforms. There was no difference between the Makangas, the Kamageras, the touts at the stage with the official Matatu crews. There were no circles. Matatus did not have yellow lines saying which routes they play. So many things were not in place, and they were brought in place with proper regulations, which brought sanity and a lot of difference in the Matatu industry. Why am I talking about all this? Because we have the same problem with the motorcycle industry in Kenya right now. When I was younger, we had 2 types of bikes. The KPLC and Kenya Water, whatever, the one that you go, cutting, reading your meters and cutting your supply of water and electricity. And then we had presidential escort motorcycles. Even the police didn't have bikes back then. I had never seen a motorcycle being ridden by a normal police officer like this DTs that roam around doing traffic things. They were not there. It was presidential escort and Kenya Power plus I think Kenya Water, if I'm not wrong, these parastatos. And then people started, seeing potential for bikes, but I'll get there. There was also this other industry of bicycles that were being used to transport people from one side of the Busia border to the other side of, there was Busia in Uganda and there was Busia in Kenya, border towns that are on both sides of the country. One is in Uganda, one is in Kenya. People who are crossing from one country to the other, like, one side of the Uganda to the Kenyan side and vice versa, they would use bicycles. Those bicycles that would be helping people to cross from one side of the border to the other were called Bodaboda. That's where the word Bodaboda came from. Then the Bodaboda operators started using motorcycles instead of bicycles. And the name Bodaboda was borrowed from the bicycles and put on the motorcycles. They would do the transport very well, and then it became a common means of transport across the country. But the name never changed. It became Bodaboda, and now we have Bodabodas all over the country, not necessarily crossing any borders, but transporting people all over the country. The Bodaboda industry has grown so much that Fred Matiang'i said that we have at least 22 million rides a day. And if the average cost of a ride is 50 shillings, it's a billion shilling per day industry. Yes, the numbers are there. There are many. Now, of course, it's not only like the Bodaboda transporters that have seen the need or the usefulness of a motorcycle in transport. We have a lot of private individuals, including people like me, who've chosen motorcycles as the preferred mode of transport. The difference is, at the moment, is Bodabodas are used to ferry, people's goods and people themselves for hire and reward. Like, they commercialize the transport. Like you offer a service to the public at a fee, and that makes you a PSV, public service vehicle. Of course, the ones people like us we don't charge anyone to, we don't carry anyone at a fee. We don't transport anyone's goods at a fee. We carry ourselves and transport our own things free of charge. We pay, we cater for the costs. And that's the only distinguishing characteristics between Bodabodas and private riders right now. We have maybe, let's say, in the region of somewhere around, maybe growing towards 1 million. And the numbers are growing of the people who are using private bikes. But the government does not recognize our presence. Like, the government does not recognize the presence of people who use motorcycles as their preferred means of transport in Kenya. I will tell you why. When the president was giving directives that are meant to curb the rogueness or the lack of regularization of the Bodaboda industry, he put in directives which are meant to do that. And in his directives, his wording was, Bodabodas should be removed from the streets until people have registered and complied with the laws. Now, he said Bodabodas. He did not mention private bikes. And, when the rule that is coming from the top is saying Bodabodas, and the people on the ground do not know the difference between Bodabodas and private transport, what do you expect? What do you expect? They have harassed private riders from here to kingdom come. Because how do you prove you're a private rider? Yes, you have private insurance. Yes, you have a license too that is not a commercial license for riding. But they're asking you to present evidence of employment. I'm self-employed. I know farmers who carry their own goods that are self-employed. Which letters are we supposed to present to show that we are self-employed farmers, or we are self-employed people who just survive in the country with motorcycles? What? Or do I need to start now showing this is where my office is, this is my business card? No. There is a need to distinguish between Bodabodas and private bikes, just as the need, arose for the distinction between private vehicles and PSV vehicles. Obviously, during the ongoing crackdown, there has been a lot of unfair arrests, because, when you give police officers the directive that they have, arrest somebody, create an offense, of course they will create an offense. Now, people are being told that they have ridden on pavements and they have obstructed. A motorcycle is this thick. Like, the wind of a motorcycle from one end to another is technically one human. It's actually smaller than a human being, because a human being has to put the legs across a motorcycle to ride it. Now, where do you think motorcycles are obstructing? A motorcycle which is able to sieve through, closed roads, like traffic, packed roads, jam. Bikes are able to sieve through them. So where are they obstructing? How are they obstructing? Who in their right mind will park a motorcycle in a way that a vehicle could hit it on the road? Because, if you are hit by a vehicle on a motorcycle, you won't love the results. And we are not idiots, we know that. So who is obstructing? Who in their right minds is obstructing? And how are they obstructing? Are they parking their bikes in the middle of the road to obstruct? We are being told you overlap. Overlapping where? It's called lane splitting. Like getting in between the spaces in between the cars. That's not illegal. And then who in their right mind will ride on pavements when they know very well there are police officers doing a msako, the national-wide crackdown, and they're right there. Who will in their right mind will ride on pavements? Do you want to say like, yes, we're not the smartest bunch of people, but we're not that stupid either? You see, like, people are getting arrested and arraigned in court. I'm asking, magistrates are our fellow learned friends. I'm a lawyer by profession. Magistrates are our colleagues. I know they can understand this. Nobody in their right mind will do that. Of course, there are a few people who are not very clever. They probably do it. But the majority of the people who are going to court right now are not guilty. But then they cannot afford to have their motorcycle impounded, put in a police station, like in a heap, together with hundreds of others, at the risk of losing parts, like vandalism. And then for how long? Like, court cases end like after 6 months or even longer. And they're expensive. Legal fees are not cheap. And even when you don't have a lawyer, the cash bail being imposed for someone who is allegedly, obstructing or riding on pavements is high. We have heard of cases where the cash bail is 60,000 shillings, but the fine is smaller. If you admit like you've made a mistake, the fine is like 20,000 shillings, but the cash bail is much higher. Who in their right mind wants to commit 60,000 to defend a case where if it ends right now, they will just pay 10 or 15,000? That is how corruption is being fueled in the country. I'm requesting my fellow colleagues in the judiciary, please be a bit lenient in the way you are handling cases revolving around this countrywide msako or crackdown on motorcycles, because there's a lot of injustice happening. This is an appeal. Please, if you're in the judiciary, consider some sort of leniency when handling matters revolving around bikes, because I can tell you a lot of those people who are coming, they are innocent. And of course, like, Kenyan police do not need to have, documentary evidence like photographs or videos showing the kind of crime that they have, arraigned someone in court for. They just need a couple of their colleagues, like, you, Kipruto, kujeni hapa, Mbogwa, kuja, and then continue. You are the witnesses. Say this person has been obstructing. Somehow, explain it. You will not be unable to explain. Just explain. You are three. He is just one. So they are using their numbers to come to court and say, yes, we saw it. You want to say, like, policemen are busy doing the crackdown, but they are saying, oh yeah, that one is obstructing. You, Kibroto, come and see that one. Mbogwa, kuja one yule. It's a lie. I know, like, officers, you have to follow your orders, like in other like, maze, eshimunu, ukweli sometimes si mbaya, man. Yes, I know, like, some of these people are paying bribes and you're probably benefiting from those bribes. Be fair. God may be pissed off about corruption and decide to hit you guys with lightning. What if that happens? Unapigwa hapa kirauni kako hapa kakona shimo, umepigwa na lightning, umeungua, my friend. But I'm not praying for bad things to happen. A lot of these police officers are actually our friends, and we enjoy a really good cordial relationships when in the course of our duties. But let there be justice. Let there be justice, please. Msiumize hawa watu wadogo. Of course, the rich bike owners, if you arrest them and you take them to court, they will defend that matter stringently. Some of them even have GoPros mounted on their helmets. They already have the evidence to use against you to prove that it was malicious prosecution. But yeah, obviously, like, the poor will not access justice in the same capacity as the weak. And there's that. Anyway, do we have a solution that could be used? Oh, ngoja kidogo. There is this issue of discrimination against bikes. Like, you see, the fact that there's no recognition of the difference between, or the existence of private bikers in Kenya, and the distinction between private bikes and PSV bikes. I'll give you an example. The Nairobi metropolitan, the CBD area, there has been some sort of a blanket ban of Bodaboda operations within the city. Of course, I know you see Bodabodas there. They are not supposed to be there. And because of that ban, private bikers, like people like me, some of who own both cars and bikes, we can drive cars into the CBD, access parking, private cars of course, access parking, work, finish our business go home, we pay for that parking. Of course, it's not like we're asking for free services. But then when the same people who drove in the CBD maybe earlier that day or the previous day ride their own private bikes to town, they will find some very, very, very enthusiastic county council officers, some of who are not even uniformed. They have this behavior. They grab your keys from the ignition and tell you to push the bikes due to where I will not push my bike. These people, they don't care whether you're private or you're public, because they say the county council, the NMS, they have not provided parking slots for private bikes. So where are you going? What are you doing in the streets of Nairobi? Where are you going to park? Of course, there are private parking lots so we can access and pay for. But they don't care about that. The fact that they have not given you parking, which is of course illegal and it's discriminatory if you ask me, they will use that as an scapegoat to arrest you, take you in circles. They take you to the city court. Things in that court, my friend, I don't know. Let there be reforms in the county council court because the things that happen there are injustice, unfair and illegal. There is no due process. I have seen a lot of innocent people suffering at the hands of county council officers and that county council court. To be honest, in my opinion, I think it should be banished, but I'm not saying much because that is not my place. But it should be regularized. Because you can't tell me like, yes, let's say, I'll give myself an example. I've never been arrested, of course, because I think the moment people find out you're a lawyer, they don't want to take you through the legal means because they know they will have a difficult time like trying to prove a false accusation against you. But there are people not very good at defending themselves. So someone is called, oh, you jumped at the red light. Of course they didn't jump red light. How did you catch them? The bike will just go if it jump. They catch you when you stop at those red lights. They catch you when you stop at parking places, or they catch you in the middle of the street. You will be arrested in the middle of the street. That's the only way to arrest you, because if you start doing chases against bikes, you will not catch up with bikes. But anyway, they will come up with trumped up charges, take you to those illegal places. You end up paying storage. Why are you paying storage to the county council for the bike they have arrested? Against all the rules of fair justice and stuff like that. That must be put to an end. I don't know who is in charge of the NMS right now. I think it's Honorable Bandi, Moshimo. I think he's a brigadier. Tafadhali, please. There are lots of things which are happening. I know you don't want to be involved in the headache of dealing with people like Bodabodas and stuff like that. But some of us are not Bodabodas. Please recognize our presence. Create a little space for us to park. We'll still pay. We'll pay. You can even say 4 bikes per parking lot. And then we pay whatever amount. You will make more money. 4 bikes will pay more than 1 car. I can assure you that. And bikes will happily share the space. Happily share the space. You don't have to create a new parking lot for us. No. We can park in those parking spaces and pay the same amount with cars, by the way. Si ati tumekosa pesa ya kulipa parking, ni vile amutukubali. But now we are told, scapegoats, we need to change the constitution of the county so that we can create this parking. Don't create new parking spaces. Make money from the existing parking spaces. And this thing of saying, you have to pay a parking season. No. I come to Nairobi when I want to come to Nairobi. So why do I have to pay for all the other times when I'm not in Nairobi? Why do I need to pay 5,000 shillings to access Nairobi once or twice in a month? No need. We want to pay parking that day. We can pay like car people. We have the resources to pay like car people. Please let us. Anyway, about the distinction between bikes and private bikes and non-private bikes. This is my suggestion. You see, this is a very bright orange color. Very conspicuous. You must have noticed it right now. You see, we have other colors in this video, including me, not very light skin. We have this red on the helmet here. We have a lot of colors here, but I know the orange is the most conspicuous. We even have this luminous green, the one that is on top of my label here. You can see it. We can paint Bodaboda bikes with luminous colors. They will be more conspicuous than reflectors. They will be seen from all over the place. And then the operators can have color-coded reflectors or uniforms or something they put on top. I think reflectors are the best. Printed with the motorcycle or the name, one of the names of the riders. Maybe a code and a unique identifier. And then a barcode that you can even scan to verify that the person is who they claim to be. And the same can be on their bike. Then that way the bike is known, this is this bike, and this bike is registered as a Bodaboda bike. This is this rider, and this rider is registered as a Bodaboda rider. And this rider is registered to operate, the Bodabodas in this particular area, just like you've done with the matatus. And then that way it will be very easy to know who the legitimate operators of the Bodaboda business are, where they operate from, and even their colleagues will know, this one is registered, this is a legitimate one. Such that when weird person is using a motorcycle in a certain vicinity, the legitimate people will know this bike does not belong here, and the activities it's doing here are weird. It will be very easy for them to do what we call like community policing. Then that way they will be part of the solution towards removing criminal and rogue elements from within themselves. Because right now, if a thief or a bunch of criminals use motorcycles, they will just like take one corner, two corners, and they blend in with all the other motorcycles. But when the Bodabodas are marked or painted or identified and are very easily, uniquely verifiable from a distance, it would be easy to note who does not belong in this area. Because if the person who is committing a crime in this particular area is one of you, the Bodabodas will get him. They will get him. They will get him. You see that injustice that was being done to that lady at Forest Road? They will do that injustice or mob justice to anybody who tries to ruin their reputation within their environment. So yeah, let us empower them. Don't make it too expensive for them to register and do all these changes. Let's do it. In Rwanda, they even have trackers on motorcycles, by the way. And the tracking service has been provided at a very cheap rate, so they are able to afford it. You don't make those things expensive. If you make them affordable, people will buy into them. And this will help. Then you know the places where all these bikes are. And then now the people who are not registered will be left with a very small number. Like right now in my area, we have the ratio of 1 is to like 200 bikes. One private bike is to like 200 Bodabodas. So we can understand out as private riders as well. So imagine if all those Bodabodas were marked. And then now, if the unmarked ones were either the private ones or the rogue ones, it will be very easy to notice that is not a legitimate Bodaboda. So if there's any suspicious activity, it is easy to pinpoint which bike is being used, etc, etc, etc. And that is how you're going to solve this problem. Kindly involve us in the process of distinguishing or changing the laws. Then that way we'll be able to add a lot of value in this. Of course, we understand the issues that surround the bikes in Kenya. It will be easier to work with us than do these things in a round table full of people who don't know anything about riding. And the problem is right now everybody is rushing to register associations and declare themselves chairman and etc and try to say everybody is the member. No, we need people who have been endorsed publicly by the people who are on the ground. Then those people can go and represent them. Then that way, if you ask, who are you representing? If I say yes, I can call upon my people to show up in large numbers. I don't need to pay them. These are our people. They understand our problems, so they will come through. But then if it's someone who is like, I gave myself this seat, or I'm claiming that I represent everybody by force. We even have people who are saying that private bikes should have kipande systems. That's some bullshit. How many private drivers have kipandes? You have to identify yourself as a private driver. Your license is enough. Your insurance is enough. You are licensed as a private rider. You are insured as a private rider. And you are using your bike for non-commercial purposes. So why do I have to have IDs and stamps and do what? Let's not introduce kipande systems. Unless maybe for public, it would be understandable if they have badges which identify who they are. But for private, that kipande system is only for people who want to make this a cash cow. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. It's not like to point fingers, even if it's all 5 of them. Yes, I'm not pointing fingers at you who are trying to commercialize the existence of private bikes. Shame on you. Anyway, please involve us in the process. We will work together. Sorry for making this too long. It was worth it. Signing out, Wakili Timam, Kenyan private biker, legendary racer and adventurer.